Kumar sir. Adarsh Kumar sir. याला फोन लागू सर दादाला फोन लागू लावा सर जाधव नंबर आहे का जाधव सर सर जाधव
Very good morning everybody. Dear Dr. D. F. Shirude, Chairperson and Principal of the college, Dr. C. M. Nikam, Vice Principal, Dr. N. B. Bachhav, Academic Supervisor, Dr. J. D. Jadhav, Head Department of Botany, Dr. Y. C. Shastri, Coordinator of this program, all the members of this organizing team, Dr. M. N. Bhajbhuje, the learned speaker on mycology, my all dear students and friends who are attending the webinar. Today's my talk is on the Archegoniate. My dear friend, Archegoniate includes those plants which possess archegonium, female reproductive organ, that is egg, and its accessory cells enclosed within the sterile jacket. My talk is entirely based on as per the syllabus of the Pune University as sent by your faculty members. The Archegoniate, especially the cryptogams, includes bryophytes, sensu stricto, and pteridophytes, sensu stricto, as per by the Campbell 1905. My dear friends, regarding the gymnosperms, they are also a part of Archegoniate sensu lateral. Regarding the angiosperms, in primitive angiosperms, the archegonium is highly reduced form. All these groups are or have the archegonium as a female reproductive organs. On the other hand side, those plants which are simple, primitive, and without the archegonium, they are called aarchegoniate. Aarchegoniate means where archegonium is absent. It includes the thallophytes, that is the algae, fungi, lichen, etc. It's like this. After the archegoniate, the other part which is very important for the students, that is the embryophyta. Those plants which bear the embryo fall under the embryophyta. It includes bryophyta, pteridophyta, gymnosperm, and angiosperms. My question is for the students that what is the embryo? If you see in this picture, this zygote, which is formed by the fusion of the male and female gametes, it forms the zygote, which is the diploid in nature. If this zygote divides by the mitosis, it forms a mass of diploid cells, which is called the embryo. This embryo then differentiates. In case of the bryophytes, the sporophyte consists of the foot, seta, and capsule, and in the pteridophytes, the sporophyte has true roots, true stem, and the true leaves. While those plants which come under the thallophytes are aarchegoniate, and these plants are the without embryo. My next slide, please. Here, bryophytes. My dear students, when you are very young and child stage, your parents told you A for apple. They show you the apple and then you learn the A. Similarly, the for bryophytes, B, you should remember the plant funaria. It's very unique plant. To understand the bryophyte, always remember this plant funaria. This part is the gametophyte, which is the dominant in life cycle. It has three parts. The rhizoids, which are multicellular, they absorb the water and mineral nutrients, then axis, and on the axis, the spirally arranged the leaves are the present. At the apex, It bears either the archadia, that is the male sex organ, the collectively known as the male head, or it contains the archegonia, and that part is known as the female head. So this part is the female head in which the archegonia are the present. After the fertilization of the archegonia, the zygote is formed. This zygote divides by the mitosis and forms the embryo. My dear friend, bryophytes are unique in nature. In these plants, the formation of archegonium starts for the first time. In these plants, the formation of the embryo starts for the first time. This embryo differentiates and form the foot which is embedded at the apex of the female shoot, then long seta, and the apex of long seta, there is the capsule.
Yeah,
So
excuse me.
this capsule,
Actually,
just
slideshow. Sorry to interrupt, but slideshow
okay,
is not changing, or maybe slides can actually be.
pardon?
Slideshow is not started yet, so the slide is not changing.
Okay. I'm just showing the. Okay, is it visible now?
It is visible. Can you also start the slideshow
Yeah. Okay.
from the slideshow menu?
Can you see it?
I mean,
Is it
if
visible?
you start the slideshow, then it becomes full screen. It will be more visible.
Can you see it now?
We can see it, but it is the slide number 1 which is on the screen.
Okay, can you see amplified?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So in bryophytes, the male plant body is the gametophytic, and the sporophytic pair, which consists of the foot, seta, and capsule, depends on the gametophyte for the nourishment and for the support. This is the unique feature of the bryophytes. If you recall the bryophytes, always remember the plant filariae. The main plant body is gametophyte, and sporophyte depends on this gametophyte. Next slide, please. Here I am showing the classification of each. This classification falls under the category of the phylogenetic system of the classification. Ischler divided the plant kingdom in two subkingdoms, the cryptogams and the phloemogams. Cryptogams includes those plants where flower is absent, the seed is absent. This cryptogams divided in three divisions: thallophytes, bryophytes, and pteridophytes. And on the other hand side, phloemogams divided in two divisions: gymnosperm and the angiosperms. This placement of the five divisions is as per the phylogen. It means the most primitive group is the thallophytes, from which evolved the bryophytes and then pteridophytes. My talk is based on the Archegoniate, that is on bryophytes and the pteridophytes. If you consider the bryophytes, these bryophytes are more evolved than the thallophytes. And other hand side, the pteridophytes are more evolved than the bryophytes. Not only this, the thallophytes and bryophytes, both divisions show affinity in their gametophytic stage. On the other hand side, bryophytes and pteridophytes show affinity mostly in the sporophytic stage. Next slide, please. This is the Smith classification, which is prescribed in Pune University. Here, division Bryophyta has been divided in three main classes. One is the Hepatica, other one is the Anthocerote, and third one is the Massai. As per the ICBN, International Code of Botanical Nomenclature, the new name of the Hepatica is the Hepaticopsida. The ending of class is Opsida. Then Anthocerote is known as Anthocerotopsida. And similarly, Massai is known as the Bryopsida. My dear friends, the recent classification proposed for the bryophytes is somewhat different. As per this classification, Hepatically has been placed in separate division, and that is called the Markensiophyta, as per the Stotler et al. 208. Similarly, the class Anthocerotopsida has been placed in another separate division that is called the Anthocerotophyta. This is by Stotler and Stotler 2005. And on the other hand side, Masai Brapsida, which is known as the Bryophyta. It includes all the mosses. This division has been proposed by the book and the Goffnet in 2000. The Hepatica includes the following order: Spirocarpales, Markensials, Jungamanials, and Calobrials. On the other hand side, the Anthocerote or Anthocerotopsida has a single order, that is the Anthocerotales. While the mosses, Masai, Brapsida or Bryophyta, this is the largest group. So there is a concept of the subclasses. And these subclasses are the Sphaeridae, Andreidae, and Bryidae. The Bryidae has two orders, Polytrichals and Bryals. Andreidae has Andreals, and Sphaeridae has Sphagnales. So this is a brief concept of the Smith classification, which is in your syllabus. Now I'm talking about the origin of the bryophytes. This is still controversial. It is an abominable mystery. This term, abominable mystery, was termed by the Charles Darwin for the angiosperm. Similar case lies in case of the bryophytes. There is no such perfect evidence on the basis of which we can say that these plants are the original plants from which the bryophytes evolved. In spite of that, there is no fossil record to establish the origin of bryophytes till date. There are two views regarding the origin of bryophytes. One is the algal hypothesis proposed by Libner 1903, Bauer 1908, and Fritsch 1916 and 1945. The other thought of the school believed that bryophytes evolved from the pteridophytes by descending. So this is called the pteridophytean hypothesis. The supporter of this theory are the Scott 1911, Kashyap 1919, and Haskell 1949, and Mehra 1967. Here I am giving some example of the algal hypothesis. This is the coleochaete, green algae. The plant is thyroid in form of the rosette, gametophyte. After the fertilization, the zygote is formed in this plant. In case of algae, this zygote soon divides by meiosis, reduction division, and forms the meiospores. It is believed that in due course of evolution, this zygote of algae fails to divide by the meiosis or reduction division, and it starts to divide by the mitosis. And when zygote divides by the mitosis, in last slide I have shown it forms the embryo. And this embryo differentiate and form the capsule, and its example is the Rixia. In case of Rixia, this is the bryophyte in which sporophyte has neither foot nor seta, only sporogonium or capsule is present, which is found embedded within the thallus, especially in mid-dorsal groove, as in case of in this coleochaete where the zygote is embedded within the cell. So it is believed that the bryophytes evolved from simple algae like the coleochaete. The other example is of the Kara. This is the sex organ of the Karga. This is the female sex organ, nucleus, and at the base there is the male sex organ, the globule. These two terms were coined by the Smith. If you observe in this male sex organ, this is the anterior filaments, and at the upper side there is a covering of the shield cells. This anthedium. This anthedium is converted in the anthedium of the bryophytes. But the origin of this structure and the origin of this structure in bryophyte both are quite different. So Smith coined a new term, globule. He believes that from the globule the anthedium arises. Similarly, in case of the nucleus, which is the female sex organ of the Karga, the egg is present in this center and it is invested or covered by the shield cells. At the apex, there is the crown. This covered or protected structure of egg is similar in this case. In the archegonium, the outer is the sterile covering. In the base, there is egg, and these are the accessory cells, ventral canal cells and neck canal cells. So it is believed that from the nuclear structure, the archegonium evolved. That's right. This is the angular theory. The supporter of this theory believe that the sex organs are bryophytes where the sterile covering is present evolved from the brown algae phaeophytes. My dear students, in phaeophytes, there is three subclasses. One subclass is isogenerating. Its example is ectocarpus. The other is heterogeneity, and third one is the cyclospore. So I am giving the example of ectocarpus, which is the member of subclass isogenerating. The supporters of this view believe that the Anthedia and Archegonia evolved from the plurilocular sporangium. This is the plurilocular sporangium. In this sporangium, all the cells are fertile. They produces the mitozoespores. In due course of evolution, the outermost part becomes the sterile and it forms the covering. As you know, that in case of the development of male sex organ, that is the anthedium, it is more active and number of cell division increases. On contrary to this, in development of the female sex organ, which is passive, the number of cell division decreases. So in due course of time, the outer layer become the sterile and they do not form the mitozoespores, and the number of division increases, and all these cells are the fertile endometrial cells that form the anthozoites or spores. The other plurilocular sporangium, the outer covering form the sterile covering, and the inner side, the cells divide in fewer number. It's more passive. And the last cell become the egg. This is the ventral canal cell, and these are the neck canal cell, and thus the archegonium is formed. So it is believed that the sex organ of anthedium and archegonium evolved from the brown algae, that is from the isogenerative, that is from the ectocarpus. This is the second theory. This theory is pteridophytean hypothesis. The supporter of this theory believe that bryophytes are descendants of the pteridophyte. The reduction division took place in pteridophytes, and by the reduction, the bryophytes evolved. In support of this view, this plant is of the hardiphyton. This is the gametophyte, and on this is the sporophyte. where the dichotomy is visible, and these are the sporangia, where the spores are produced. In due course of evolution, this dichotomy stops and the apical meristem comes downward at the middle part, which becomes the meristematic in case of the anthosaurus, and the lower part is the foot. So from the sporophyte of the pteridophyte, the hornworts as well as the mosses, the sporophyte evolved. The next slide, here the stomata on the sporophyte of the herniophyton are visible, and these are the stomata on the anthosaurus are also visible. That the sporophyte bears the stomata and it possesses the photosynthetic pigments and form the starch as its reserve food. Other than above two theories regarding the origin of bryophytes, there is a third view of Church 1990, which is neither tenable and nor acceptable due to certain well-established drawbacks discussed and proposed by the French in 1931. Actually, Church in 1919 believed that the earlier, when whole earth was covered by the sea, marine water, there was no land visible, and the plant evolved in sea, that is the sea plankton, and for its coined a term thalassiophyta. These are those plants or phytoplanktons which evolved in the ocean. From these thalassiophyta, some land appeared on ocean, and these plants become the benthic. So this is the sub-aerial, the transmigration plants are benthic plants. And from these plants, the land flora like bryophytes evolved. But this theory has not been accepted by anybody. Till date, there are two views regarding the origin of angiosperm. One is the algal hypothesis, and other one is the pteridophytean hypothesis. The second part of my talk is the contribution of Professor Ramudar. Professor Ramudar was the student of Professor S.K. Pandey. And Professor S.K. Pandey was the student of Professor S.R. Kashyap, the father of Indian biology. Actually, S.K. Pandey was the student of Professor S.R. Kashyap, and Professor Ramudar FNA was the student of the Professor S.K. Pandey. Professor Ramudar, born in district Basti of Uttar Pradesh, after completing his intermediate, he joined University of Lucknow and did his BSc, MSc with honors, and joined his PhD work under the eminent biologist Dr. Professor S.K. Pandey. After completing the PhD, he joined as a lecturer in University of Lucknow, and from that time, he established the well-established biology lab at University of Lucknow. His main contribution is in taxonomical studies. He studies the members of Bacteriales, family Jungamaniaceae, Furinaceae, Legionnaceae, Notothylaceae, Cythodium, Cadonanthus, Notoscyphus, and so many plants. He reported several genera from India for the first time. These plants are Calobrium, Buxbaumia, Conicolia, Cerendocolia. He reported so many new species. I have mentioned some: Rixia pandei, Rixia reticulata, Plazocosma, Poriana, Mania Horenai, Mania personae, Cythodium denticulatum, Ricardia santapoi, Buxbaumia himalayensis, and Calobrium indicum. He completed several morphological studies, such as in family Sortariaceae. He completed the monograph of the Athlemia pinguis and Plagiocosma intermedium. Not only this, he completed the palynological work of the liverworts and the heartworts, which are very useful to solve the taxonomical problems of the bryophytes. He started his work with the cultural studies, and he did the cultural studies in plant Erixia. He also completed some work on the physiological studies and reported several enzymes in case of the hepatic. He studied the oil bodies, which are found only in the liverworts. And these oil bodies are present only in the living samples. He published two famous books. One book is An Introduction to Bryophyta for the students, and other very, very famous book, Bryology in India, which is useful for the PG as well as for the research purpose. Under Professor Ramudar, following students completed their PhD on different topics. His first student was the Dr. Vinod Chandra Bhatnagar. He retired from the University of Delhi. He completed his research work on Raebareli. Then, second student, Dr. S. Srivastava, who retired as a professor and head of the University of Lucknow, and he followed all the trends laid down by the Professor Udar, and he continued the same lab. His main work is on the Mediterranean and other the flora of different part of the India. The third student, Professor Dr. Dinesh Kumar, his work is on the Cadobrias. Professor Dinesh Kumar also did some work under Professor P.N. Mehra from the Chandigarh University. Then Dr. Virendranath, his work is on food lineagery. He retired from the National Botanical Research Institute, NBRI, Lucknow, as a deputy director. Then fifth one is Dr. T.K. Singh. His topic was the Notothylaceae. He retired from the Botanical Survey of India, Calcutta, as a director of BSI. Then Dr. Asha Gupta. He retired from the Birbal Sahni Institute of Paleobotany. His specialization was on the palynology of the bryophytes and especially the liverworts and the heartworts. Then Dr. U.S. Avasthi. He was in Associate College of the Lucknow University, and his topic was the Tychanthoidae. Then myself, Dr. Adarsh Kumar, my thesis topic was the Indian jungle history. Then Dr. Farhad Sahin, his topic was Porelaceae. He is serving in the forensic lab. Dr. Dhirendra Kumar, he was in Kanpur University, and he also did some work at Allahabad University under Professor D.D. Pant. His topic was the Redulaceae. Then Dr. Geeta Asthana. Geeta Asthana retired in 2019 from University of Lucknow as a professor and head of the botany department. His PhD topic was the Cololugineaceae. Then Anita Agrawal. At present, she is in the USA, and her topic was the Legionnaceae. And at the last, the student of Professor Udar is Dr. Ashish Asthana. He's still working in National Botanical Research Institute, Lucknow, as a senior scientist, and his topic was the Anthoceros. So thank you very much. This was my whole talk on the Archegoniate and the contribution of the Professor Ramudar. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your valuable, informative, and quality guidance. Your contribution in the field is remarkable. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.